In this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about how to grow and strengthen your hamstrings. First, a quick review of anatomy. Located on the back of the thigh, the hamstrings consist of three muscles: the semimembranosus, the semitendinosus, and the long head of the biceps femoris. Since the three muscles attach from the pelvis to the tibia and fibula of the lower leg, they have two primary actions: hip extension and knee flexion. There is also a short head of the biceps femoris that only acts to flex the knee. Therefore, maximizing the growth and strength of the hamstrings requires a combination of hip extension and knee flexion based exercises. The biggest mistake people make when training their hamstrings is assuming that all exercises that involve hip extension are created equal. This is not the case. For example, studies by Kubo et al. In 2019 and Plotkin et al. In 2023 have shown that squats do not cause growth of the hamstrings. This is likely true for any exercise that involves simultaneous hip and knee extension, such as split squats, lunges, step-ups, the leg press, and other similar movements. That same study by Plotkin et al. Also found that hip thrusts do not cause hypertrophy of the hamstrings. If you are going to perform hip extension-based movements with the intention of improving the strength and size of your hamstrings, you want to choose variations in which the knees remain relatively straight. Two of the best free weight options are deadlifts, such as Romanian deadlifts and stiff-legged deadlifts, and good mornings. Unlike conventional deadlifts that start from the ground, Romanian deadlifts, or RDLs, start from the upright position. Whether you're using a barbell, dumbbells, or the Smith machine, push your butt back and slowly lower the weight down while keeping the weight close to your shins. You'll strive to achieve as much hip flexion as possible while keeping your low back relatively flat. You'll also maintain a slight bend in your knees while trying to feel a stretching sensation in your hamstrings, especially toward the bottom of the movement. The unilateral variation of this is a single leg RDL. Since the goal is loading of the hamstrings, I recommend using the Smith machine or one dumbbell while holding onto something for balance to reduce the stability demand at the hip and ankle. You can also perform a staggered stance RDL to target one leg at a time without compromising your balance. The technique for stiff-legged deadlifts is similar to RDLs, except you're starting from the ground. As the name implies, there shouldn't be much bending and straightening of your knees. You want the majority of the movement coming from your hips. If you lack the flexibility to pull the weight from the ground while maintaining sufficient technique, you can lift the weight off blocks or plates to reduce the range of motion. On the other hand, if you need more range of motion to feel an adequate stretch of your hamstrings during RDLs or stiff-legged deadlifts, you can stand on blocks or plates. With regards to the good morning exercise, the technique is not much different except the weight is being held on your shoulders, more similar to a back squat. The last two options I'm going to discuss are hip extension using the glute ham developer, or GHD, and the Roman chair, also known as the 45-degree back extension. These can be performed with body weight, plates, dumbbells, or even a barbell if you're strong enough. If you want to increase the difficulty without additional load, you can perform either option with one leg at a time. 4 things to think about. 1, the pad should be low enough that you can actually flex and extend from your hips. 2, you should try to maintain a rigid trunk so the majority of the movement is coming from your hips. 3, your knees should be slightly bent. And 4, your feet should be facing straight ahead to maintain even tension on your hamstrings. While I'm on the topic of feet positioning, yes, rotating your legs can influence whether the medial or lateral musculature is activated more during hip extension and knee flexion based exercises. Rotating your tibias inward favors the medial hamstrings, while rotating them outward favors the lateral hamstrings. However, given the small differences that are likely negated over a lifetime of training, I don't think it's worth considering except in extreme cases. Okay, so is there a best exercise in this hip extension category? While RDLs are my personal favorite, I don't think we can label one exercise as the best. If you're training your hamstrings 2 or more times per week, it's possible that you're choosing 2 of these exercises to perform. In the short term, pick the exercise that's comfortable, can easily be progressed, and matches your preferences and equipment availability. Over the long term, you'll likely rotate through a variety of exercises, and your personal favorite might change over time. Final thing to note in this section, if you train from home and have access to absolutely no equipment, you can perform straight leg bridges with your feet elevated using 2 legs or a single leg. The biggest downside with this exercise is that you're not going to get a full stretch of your hamstrings, which is beneficial for hypertrophy. Now let's move on to the knee flexion exercises. 2 of the best machine-based movements are the seated leg curl and the prone or lying leg curl. Although they are usually performed with 2 legs at a time, either option can be performed unilaterally. This can actually be useful for normalizing asymmetries in strength and size, or improving symptoms during rehabilitation, especially if you're experiencing symptoms related to the back of your thigh or knee. With every repetition, make sure you are controlling the movement as you return to the starting position when your knees are nearing full extension. One of the most popular options as of late is the Nordic hamstring curl. To set up, you only need 2 things: a soft surface to kneel on, such as a pad, pillow, or towel, and a place to anchor your feet. Some options include a barbell with plates on either side of the weights to ensure that it doesn't roll, a flat bench with a belt or strap to firmly secure your legs, an attachment for a squat rack, the Smith machine, the lat pull-down machine, the GHD, an adjustable strap that anchors to your door, and the bigger, more expensive pieces of equipment made specifically for Nordic hamstring curls. With any of these variations, try to keep a straight line between your knees, hips, and shoulders as you slowly lower to the floor or object in front of you. You can shorten the range of motion or use a band for assistance if desired, and if you eventually get strong enough, you can actively pull yourself back up. If you're training from home, the Nordic hamstring curl with the door strap is a great choice. Another great option that can be done at home or the gym is supine leg curls with an exercise ball or sliders. You want to try to keep your hips extended the entire time. An easy built-in progression for these would be going from double leg eccentric only to double leg through the full range of motion, and then single leg eccentric only to single leg through the full range of motion. Okay, so is there a best exercise in this category? For hypertrophy, yes. A study by Mayo et al. In 2021 found that the seated leg curl led to more muscle growth than the prone leg curl. A more recent study by Mayo et al. Also found that the seated leg curl led to more overall muscle growth than the Nordic hamstring curl. What's the rationale? Well, the hamstrings respond better to training at longer muscle lengths. Since they are lengthened with hip flexion and knee extension, the start of the seated leg curl puts the hamstrings in a more stretched position than the prone leg curl or the Nordic hamstring curl. You can even accentuate this by leaning forward during the seated leg curl. Keep in mind that the hamstrings attach to the pelvis, so simply rounding the back provides no added benefit. Does that mean prone leg curls and Nordic hamstring curls are useless? No. Once again, it's possible that you're choosing 2 of these exercises to perform during a training block, and you'll likely rotate exercises over the course of your lifetime. Plus, the first study by Mayo et al. Actually found that the sartorius muscle, another knee flexor, grew more during the prone leg curl. And the second study by Mayo et al. Found that the sartorius and the short head of the biceps femoris grew more with the Nordic hamstring curl. So don't throw out all of the other options just yet. And if you don't have access to a seated leg curl machine at your gym, don't stress about it. You'll be okay. Programming for your hamstrings doesn't have to be overly complicated. For example, if you're a beginner doing full body resistance training twice per week, you might choose to do 3 sets of RDLs on one day and 3 sets of supine leg curls with an exercise ball the other day. If you're an intermediate lifter doing full body resistance training 3 times per week, you might do 3 sets of Nordic hamstring curls on Monday, 3 sets of RDLs on Wednesday, and 3 sets of seated leg curls on Friday. If you're an advanced lifter training your legs twice per week, you might do 3 sets of RDLs and 3 sets of seated leg curls on Monday, and then 3 sets of good mornings and 3 sets of prone leg curls on Thursday. With regards to the total number of sets per week, You don't need to try doing as many sets as possible as quickly as possible. Instead, focus on your technique and gradually increase the weight and repetitions completed on each lift. Over time, you can consider adding an extra set here and there only as needed. Most of these exercises can be performed in the 5 to 20 repetition range. Exercises like deadlifts and good mornings are known as compound movements, which are typically more fatiguing and complex because they require more coordination and involve multiple muscle groups. For that reason, they are usually best performed 1 to 3 repetitions shy of failure toward the lower end of that rep range. Nordic hamstring curls also lend themselves better to the lower rep ranges. On the other hand, exercises like seated and prone leg curls are known as isolation movements, which are usually less fatiguing and complex. Therefore, they can be performed to failure and toward the higher end of that rep range if desired. Obviously, these are all broad recommendations, and the exact programming would need to be individualized to you and adjusted over time as needed. In summary, the hamstrings consist of 3 muscles: the semimembranosus, the semitendinosus, and the long head of the biceps femoris. Together, they contribute to 2 primary motions: hip extension and knee flexion. There is also a short head of the biceps femoris that only acts to flex the knee. If you want to maximize the development of your hamstrings, you should incorporate a combination of hip extension and knee flexion focused exercises. Since squat and hip thrust variations do not cause hypertrophy of the hamstrings, hip extension based movements should include exercises in which the knees remain relatively straight, such as Romanian deadlifts, stiff-legged deadlifts, good mornings, and hip extension using a GHD or Roman chair. Knee flexion-based exercises include seated leg curls, prone leg curls, Nordic hamstring curls, and supine leg curls with an exercise ball or sliders. While 2 studies have shown that seated leg curls are superior for hypertrophy compared to prone leg curls and Nordic hamstring curls, the best overall development is likely achieved through a variety of exercises. If you're training 2 to 3 times per week, aim to perform 2 to 4 exercises for a total of 6 to 12 sets, at least to start. Other than that, if you focus on your technique and prioritize progressive overload, you'll be on your way to growing beefy hamstrings. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave any comments down below. If you are looking for a rehab or performance program, or you're interested in working with us one-on-one, visit our website at e3rehab.com. Peace.